The Paddy Power Half Hour on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
This is the Paddy Power Half Hour, your football preview for our Friday lunchtime Premier League this weekend. We've got the Championship, we've got the League of Ireland tonight, we've had the Champions League this week. John Duggan with you. Thanks to Paddy Power. Football coverage brought to you in association with them. And for more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. I'm delighted to be joined in studio by two proper football men, Phil Egan and Will O'Callaghan, to discuss the weekend's fare. Lads, how are we all?
Good, yeah.
Did we enjoy the Champions League during the week?
Yeah, we had a bit of a mix, a bit of a throwback to the Atletico that Simeone got to finals but could never get over the line. I don't know if it's going to be enough to finish the job against Liverpool. I still think Liverpool will turn it around, but yeah, certainly enjoyed watching Simeone's performance more than the Atletico performance. But they frustrated Liverpool, but I think Liverpool have enough in it that they can turn it around.
Would you give them a chance in the second game?
Yeah, I really fancy Liverpool still to progress, John, despite how Atletico played. Probably their best performance of the season. It's been a pretty poor fare for them in La Liga on a year where Real Madrid and Barcelona have been well below their usual level as well. This is probably Atletico's best chance to win the league since 2013, and they performed very poorly. I actually thought Liverpool were going to take them over both legs with the way Atletico have been playing, but we saw obviously a classic Atletico Simeone performance on Tuesday night. It's funny how the main agents seem to change at Atletico Madrid, but Simeone has a way of still getting to play in virtually the same style. You know, this is not the Atletico Madrid who had players like Diego Godin at the back, but they do have possibly one of the best goalkeepers right up there with Alisson and Jan Oblak, and they're going to need him in that second leg because I think Liverpool won't be kept to no shot on target when they come to the game at Anfield. I still think Liverpool will score a few goals in the second leg. They'll have Mane obviously for the full game as opposed to having to sub him halfway off. I think Mo Salah won't be as constrained as he was at the Metropolitano.
Phil, we know you're blood red Liverpool if we cut you. You've got to worry about for the second leg?
No, not really. And it's funny how the narrative changes where Liverpool lose a game and all of a sudden people think, is there cracks here, or is this showing that once again in a big away game Klopp didn't get it right? And with his substitutions, he was criticised for the Mane situation. Mane was on a yellow card and he can keep his head all he wants, but the players around him in the Atletico jerseys were clearly trying to get him sent off. So Klopp didn't really have much of an option. It happened playing for Senegal a few months ago as well, where Mane was taken off at half time because, you know, he was frustrated at a few decisions that had gone against him. But he'd be back, as Will said, and wouldn't be surprised if he is the main orchestrator in the comeback. Probably we'll have to see what happens with Jordan Henderson, but wouldn't be surprised if Oxlade-Chamberlain or Keita, one of them will start and just give them a bit more creativity in midfield.
I think, Phil, it's a game set up for Keita's dynamism as well, which Liverpool are going to need in midfield, because we saw with Atletico they were happy enough to bring the likes of Koke and even Correa further back. They will look to try and condense space where possible. They'll play a very low press against Liverpool in that second leg, and you want someone who can get between the lines like Keita and who can support the attack.
They'll have Costa back as well, so they can go a bit more direct with Costa because he can hold the ball up a lot better than Morata. Morata, obviously, we saw when he played for Chelsea in the Premier League, any sign of contact and he'll go down. So Costa's a bit stronger, and you could see when he came on just that reception he got from the Atletico fans. But no, I think Liverpool will turn it around. And I know people think you can't just rely on Anfield the whole time, but Anfield is a fortress now under Jurgen Klopp, and if they get an early goal, Liverpool, then I'd expect them to win comfortably. If they have to be patient and grind it out, they can also do that. But Atletico are not going to create too many chances, I don't think, at Anfield. Obviously, if they score, you know, they're in the box seat, but I can see Liverpool keeping them to a clean sheet.
I think as well, John, Atletico, the teams who got to the Champions League finals and who won the Europa League previously, all at a cutting edge, which is lacking with this particular vintage of the team. Like, they've gone from having Diego Forlan, Sergio Aguero, Falcao, Anton Griezmann, to having a misfiring Morata and a Diego Costa who's just coming back from injury. I think they created very little outside the first few minutes against Liverpool, really, in terms of clear-cut chances, and I think they're really going to struggle to create chances at Anfield, and that's probably Liverpool's best chance. I think Liverpool will lay siege to Atletico in that second leg, and they'll do enough to get through.
And someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold put two crosses over the crossbar. He's not going to do that It was probably his worst performance of the season. It's not going to happen again. So I think Liverpool, this is just a little bit of a blip, but there's a reason they're one of the favourites to win this competition.
I've been silenced by the beautiful summary here by Phil Egan and Will O'Callaghan on Liverpool and Atletico Madrid in the second leg. Liverpool Bay Monday night, Paddy Power odds for their Premier League game against West Ham United. 7-1 on Liverpool. The draw 13-2. West Ham, a disaster of a club, 16-1. They're going down, and 16-1. They should be 100-1 at Anfield. The Champions League odds, we're looking here for Paddy Power once again, outright now. Quite open. Manchester City 7-2, Bayern Munich 11-2, Liverpool 11-2 as well, Barcelona 15-2, PSG 9-1, Juventus 11-1, Real Madrid 14-1, Leipzig 16s, the conquerors of Spurs. It's going to happen. Atletico 20-1, Borussia Dortmund 22-1. They are ahead against PSG. Atalanta 22, it's not a hope. Chelsea 40, Spurs 66, Napoli 66, Lyon 250s, and for the romantic holidays, when they win by 4-0 in the second leg, Valencia 425-1. Lads, who's going to win the Champions League?
I still think Liverpool are going to win the Champions League. I still think they're the best team left in the tournament.
11-2, Paddy Power.
Surprised to see City as the favourites, and this is nothing to do with the European ban or anything like that. They were favourites when the draw was made, and I think they'd be doing well to get past Real Madrid. And then I look at Bayern Munich. I'm not convinced by them, especially away from home. It is quite open, and that's why you still have to favour Liverpool if they get through against Atletico. The PSG Dortmund game, I think PSG can turn that around, but it is quite open, yeah.
And outside, if he wasn't Liverpool, would be anybody you would give it an
obviously
chance to?
Barcelona have drifted, despite the fact that I think they've got a nice draw with Napoli, the first leg coming up next week. But you're betting on a Barcelona team where you're entirely Messi dependent now because of Luis Suarez's injury and because of Dembele is not available either. Chances are Griezmann has to hit form.
And Braithwaite can't play.
Braithwaite can't play.
That's what some people say anyway.
Yeah, if anyone saw the video of his unveiling, they probably have that confirmed for them now at this point with his attempted skills.
He was so nervous looking.
In Messi's old shirt.
Even just walking into the new camp, he'd be breaking it. And honestly, he just looked like someone who hadn't played football before. And
Setien hasn't had time to turn Barca around. Watched him a few times in recent weeks against Real Betis, and I saw their cup quarter-final against Athletic Bilbao as well, and it still hasn't clicked. They've tried to change the style of football a little bit, but I think Setien is either going to need time or they'll have to make an adjustment in the summer. But you're betting way too much on Messi having to beat some of the elite teams. A bit like Phil, Man City have never really done it under Guardiola in terms of the big teams when they go to play them in the Champions League. If they beat Real Madrid, you got to respect them entirely for the rest of the tournament because their Premier League campaign is over and they can concentrate entirely now in the cups. But I can't see City taking enough teams out to win it.
I'm going to go for the bottlers, PSG 9-1, the big bottlers.
They're going out, John. They're not going to get past Borussia Dortmund.
No, I think they will.
Well, yeah.
And I think they get past Dortmund.
Yeah, but not. But you think they're bottlers as well?
Yeah, they just. Well, take the Dortmund game. He changed the formation going into it. He had played a certain way, changes it, and just overthinks it.
Wouldn't know if he's strong enough as well to deal with these Neymars and Mbappé.
There's not many managers that are.
Yeah.
But also they haven't really delivered. I mean, what we saw from Erling Haaland is what PSG fans have been hoping to see from both Mbappe and Neymar in the knockout stage of the Champions League. I think at this point, after Messi's comments yesterday as well, I think a lot of PSG fans will be happy to see the back of Neymar when he leaves this summer.
Well, AK Insurance, money back with Paddy Power, is a free bet. If one leg of your fourfold same game multi lets you down, so you get a free bet. Terms and conditions apply, and it applies to top UK, Irish, Euro and senior international football. The max free bet is €10 or sterling a day, and terms and conditions apply. Remember, our football coverage brought to you thanks to Paddy Power. For more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. Premier League tomorrow, Chelsea Spurs, early doors, 12:30. Paddy Power odds 6-4 on Chelsea, 11-4 the draw, Spurs 7-2. Pretty depressing if you're a Spurs fan, which I am, that they'll be going to Chelsea. They won't have any possession. It'll be a miserable day for José. Looks like a home win for me, lads.
Yeah, it certainly points that way, but Chelsea have lost 7 games at Stamford Bridge this season, which is just very unlike them. But Lampard has to just bite the bullet and say, right, it's not working out, Batshuayi, you got to give Giroud the start. And he's not prolific, but he's a focal point. France won a World Cup playing with Giroud as the focal point in their attack. Even when he came on against United, one thing you know with Giroud, okay, he's not quick, but he's a good hold-up player.
Is he unseen?
I wouldn't even say he's unseen. I remember even watching him day that France beat Ireland at the Euros, and his physicality caused our two centre-halves that day, which was Shane Duffy and Richard Keogh, serious problems. And they're two centre-halves that you think could handle themselves physically. So you put Giroud in there, and then, you have pacey, intricate players around them. But Batshuayi isn't the answer. And obviously Tammy Abraham is injured at the moment, and it's just, he's going to have to... I know Giroud was close to leaving the club in January, nearly went to Inter, didn't happen, but Lampard just has to, if they lose to Spurs, they're just going to keep sliding. Whereas this is a chance for Chelsea just to open up that gap again and take out one of their rivals.
It's fourth against fifth here. It's 41 points for Chelsea and 40 points for Spurs, the London derby. Spurs could never win at Chelsea for about 3 decades, Will.
28 years it took to win in 2018.
1990, yeah, you're right. He doesn't fancy Kepa, but Spurs have even more problems. Son, Kane, the other night they were just completely...
blunt.
And lacking in confidence against Leipzig.
No bite until
Lamela came on. And Lo Celso was great, but he was too buzzy, and I felt at times. And you don't know where the goals are going to come from now.
It's a different problem that Spurs have. Lampard is wedded to a system, I think, when it comes to Giroud. Giroud prospered under Antonio Conte, and we've seen Lukaku do exactly the same, because he likes to have a striker who will stay around the box and who'll be a pinpoint for the ball. And then Eden Hazard probably got his best football off Giroud because there was someone to hold it up and pass it back to him. Well, Lampard wants a more fluid forward line. The problem is, as we saw on Monday, Batshuayi is entirely out of form. That was his first start in ages on Monday night as well, and he has absolutely no confidence. He kind of clutched at the 2 shots that he had, probably should have scored 1 of the 2, and as a result Chelsea never really threatened from open play throughout the game, while Spurs have no real option up front at the moment, particularly now that Mourinho has decided that Troy Parrott is not going to be an option from the start, which is perhaps understandable. I think he should be on the bench, and he's decided that Ryan Sessegnon won't play up the left side in terms of being a left-sided attacker, so his options are fairly limited. It means that Lucas Moura probably has to play,
and Ali is now in a strop as well.
Yeah, and I can understand why he was frustrated, because the game wasn't happening for him, and Leipzig were able to frustrate him, and Spurs looked a lot better when he came off as well, which wasn't really a reflection on Dele Alli, but he
ran more than anybody else on the pitch.
Yeah,
but did Mourinho need to say
he didn't
after the game that we played a lot better when Dele Alli came off?
Yeah,
Dele Alli was actually top of most people's list of which player will Mourinho fall out with first. But then he made the comment about Dele Alli, and Dele Alli's brother got a tune out of him, and it was... Ndombele was the fall guy, but do you know what, Mourinho, I think he likes Dele Alli. I think it'll be fine. You wouldn't be surprised. He's scored goals at Stamford Bridge before. He has scored that great goal when they won the couple of seasons ago. So I'd be surprised if he wasn't starting. Do you play Lamela? Mourinho hinted that Lamela just doesn't have 90 minutes in him.
I also think Lamela.
But Ndombele doesn't either.
No, but I agree. I think Parrott, whatever about not starting him, I can understand that. It's a lot of pressure. Put him on the bench. If you need a goal with 10 minutes to go, just give him a chance.
I wonder, does he telegraph that he's going to be like this to his players before he says these things? Or does he just say them?
I'd love to know what he's like in private, because Damien Delaney's been off the ball a few times, and he said that he's quite a fan of Mourinho anyway, but he said Mourinho's an absolute gent once the 90 minutes finished. So I just kind of wonder what Mourinho's relationship is like with the players in private versus what he does in public, because Mourinho's very good, going back to his Porto days, at creating a shield and putting all the pressure almost back into himself.
Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely at early Chelsea he did it really well, and the Chelsea guys bought into that kind of siege mentality as well, particularly I think in their season where they pretty much ripped up the Premier League and got 95 points that season. Lampard and Terry were talking about how José was always there. When they put in a poor performance, everyone was talking about José as opposed to them. The problem is, though, for him, where are the goals going to come from for the rest of the season, John? We could see two teams here who are going to be goal shy against each other. As Phil mentioned already, Chelsea much prefer playing on the road. I think Gary Neville made a very astute comment where he said the two teams would have probably preferred to have been away from home on Monday. United seem to put in their better performances away from Old Trafford, and Chelsea do exactly the same away from Stamford Bridge. But I just do kind of wonder for Spurs, on a wider sense, if Son Heung-min's injury is as bad as it has been portrayed, that he might not be back till the last month of the season, where is Spurs going to get goals over the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, and psychologically going into a game as a player for Spurs, knowing that if you get caught out at the back, you don't have the firepower. Because look what happened last week against Villa. They did have the firepower to get themselves out of trouble, and that was Heung-min Son, who had gone close to scoring a few even before he popped up with the winner. So it is a worry, and if you think there was 12 points between them when Mourinho took over, he's got it down to a point. But
I would just say that that's a lot to do with the Chelsea haven't been great. It's been poor around that area. Now, Sheffield United have been brilliant, but Man United have not been great. Wolves have been a bit in and out, probably because they're playing so many matches. I just think it's poor around that area. I actually think Spurs have been only okay in that time. So call it.
I think Chelsea are going to make it maybe 2-1. I actually do think Spurs will probably score, just because if Willy Caballero is playing, you've always got a chance.
It's remarkable. I think Willy Caballero is still playing Premier League football in 2020, particularly look back at the World Cup a couple of years ago.
I was there in Nizhny Novgorod as he absolutely imploded and ended Argentina's chances against Croatia.
Yeah, understandable Chelsea bring him in as a replacement, and Kepa has not had a particularly good season, but Willy Caballero was a level way below Kepa. It's a crazy decision by Frank Lampard to actually drop him at this point of the season. Chelsea have been terrible really since the end of November. I think they picked up 14 points since the first week of December and are still inside the top 4, which is maybe a reflection on the Premier League. But I think the game tomorrow is set up for a draw.
So Sheffield United and Manchester United as well playing this weekend. Sheffield United against Brighton tomorrow, 11 to 10 on. Not pretty decent price for Sheffield United, who are 6th in the table. Brighton 100 to 30 with Paddy Power, and the draw is 23 to 10. So that's one of the 3 o'clock shoulder matches, I would call them. Burnley against Bournemouth. Burnley 11 to 10, 11 to 5 the draw. Bournemouth 13 to 5. Crystal Palace odds on against Newcastle. Palace 6 to 5 on is 23 to 10 the draw, and 100 to 30 Newcastle with Paddy Power. And Southampton against Villa. Southampton 7 to 4 on, 16 to 5 the draw, and Aston Villa 4 to 1. Sheffield United, can they keep this run up?
Should do this weekend. Brighton are terrible.
Yeah, but I it's unbelievable what Chris Wilder has done, and I think in any other season he wins manager of the season, but Klopp is going to win it because he's going to be the first Liverpool manager in 30 years. But a lot of us picked them to go down, and here they are with the second best defence. That's the reason that they're doing so well. Brighton have scored more than them. Sheffield United have only scored 28 goals, so that's why I think the run will. They'll just draw too many games, I think, because they don't have enough firepower. But I do like just even Chris Wilder. He's just says, I want to reel the teams in that are above us. Let's see what happens. Let's see where this takes us. And it's great that they're in a position like that where they're not going to settle, hopefully, for we're safe now, let's just relax. We saw that with so many teams down the years, that once they hit the 40 points, flip-flops are on, they're on the beach. But Sheffield United are thinking European football. This will be unbelievable. They've never got it before.
You spotted anything in these shoulder games or the Sheffield United game?
I'm intrigued. I think Sheffield United will beat Brighton just because of the poor run that Brighton are on. They can't buy a win at the moment. Winless in their last 5. They struggle away from home to try and pick up points. Sheffield United are very decent at home. They are reliant on their midfield to get goals. It's remarkable what Chris Wilder has done. If you think that John Fleck joined them when they were in League One, and here he is now as a very dominating Premier League midfielder. A lot of this has been built up as opposed to buying players in over the last few years, and that's probably what's been most admirable about Sheffield United. I think they have to go out and get a forward this coming summer. David McGoldrick, obviously, I think he's a very, very good championship striker. I think he's fine for Ireland at international level. He's not going to get you the goals at Premier League level that you need if you're going to be ridiculously blunt about it. And obviously Billy Sharp is getting on at this stage as well. So I think if they invest, Sheffield United can be well set up for next season, and I think they'll take 3 points tomorrow afternoon.
In the other games, we seen anything that we like?
There's a couple of games where you can put them in a category of something's got to give, right? So you have Crystal Palace and Newcastle.
Sounds like a song, Phil.
Palace have scored the fewest home goals in the competition in the Premier League. Newcastle have conceded the most away goals in the league. So that's where I'm thinking something has to give. And then the game between Southampton and Villa. So you've got the worst home record in the league against the worst defence in the league.
We've got Paddy Power special odds this week. Jack Grealish to be fouled more than 5 times is 6 to 4. 2 or more goals to be disallowed by VAR in the Chelsea Spurs game is 10 to 1.
Can't happen again, surely. Chelsea got an awful doing from VAR the other night. Well, not by VAR directly, but by the officials who were interpreting. There's no way Maguire should have been on the field to score the goal.
What about the goal that was disallowed?
It was a push into a push.
But that's what worries me.
I think Fred pushed him.
No, but the official is watching this. How did Azpilicueta end up pushing a player? Was he not pushed into someone?
Yeah, it was an unusual interpretation. There was a lot of pushing going on in the lead up to that goal. I think Chelsea can definitely feel aggrieved about that, and particularly the Maguire red card.
This should be back to the referee making the final call with the monitor, shouldn't it?
It should do, yeah.
At least you can say, well, the referee in his first opportunity didn't see it or did see it.
Yeah.
And then he's got a second opportunity with advice, and then he makes the final call.
Well, I think in terms of the push as well, he would have had a fair idea of why he was going to disallow or allow the goal at that point. So it's easy for him to make an interpretation because he's standing quite close to where the pushing was going on as well. He gets a clear view, and then he can say, right, that's how I saw it, as opposed to someone back at the studio making that decision. I actually think the Willian foul was an interesting one as well, the one where he got booked. I know he definitely looked for contact, but I think there was a very lazy tackle made for that as well. So Chelsea can feel really aggrieved. There's no way I can imagine the VAR will be used that much as comparison to Monday. That was a real outlier of a game.
And also, we have the Manchester City game against Leicester tomorrow night at 5:30. Leicester's fans to sing about Manchester City's ban is 3-1 on with Paddy Power.
Nailed on.
And the odds for the match themselves, Leicester 100-30, so over 3-1 to win the game in 90 minutes, 3-1 the draw, Manchester City 6-4 on. Like when I'm looking at City beating West Ham during the week, it's just so routine. It's such a routine victory. Will this be the same?
I don't think it'll be the same, but one thing that's happened with Leicester since they went on that great run of the 8 wins in a row, and that has obviously given them a bit of a cushion. They've 10-point cushion back to 5th place, which 5th place, as things stand, is going to get Champions League anyway. So Leicester are not in the same form that they were, but one thing that's noticeable, obviously, Ndidi's not there. Obviously, Chowdhury is going to be suspended for this game. Vardy's not scoring any goals. I think Vardy's carrying a knock, to be honest. Obviously, they don't have European football, so he can recover in between games, but he just doesn't look himself.
His sharpness has gone since that injury and kind of late to
and his last goal was actually in the game at the Etihad. But the worry for me with Brendan Rodgers in these big games is sometimes he changes things because he just feels that it's a bigger team, there's more of a threat, I'm going to have to do something here. You saw he brought Iheanacho in with Vardy. Why not just stick with how it was working, the formation? And obviously there's a little bit of a change in personnel, but the big games, one thing we've seen with Brendan Rodgers in the Premier League, they don't tend to go well for him. And I think tomorrow will be more of the same.
We're looking at 12 games left in the season, and Leicester, it's 9 points between them in 3rd and Chelsea in 4th. Are they in any danger of missing out in Champions League football?
I think they have enough of a gap, John, to hold on. Especially we're already talking about the fact that the teams who are kind of south of 5th aren't on enough for a run. The teams who might do any kind of catch up in terms of form, the likes of say Everton and Arsenal, they have a long way to come back just to get into the top 5. So for the teams around 5th, 6th position, do you really see Man United, Sheffield United, say those kind of teams going on a run to challenge Leicester between the end of the season? I don't see Chelsea accumulating enough points to go over them either. So I think Leicester will be fine. I think they'll tick along, but these are the type of games where they're not picking up points, because I think, like Phil said, Brendan Rodgers can be a little bit too respectful when they play against top opposition, and they surrendered a lot of field position against Manchester United away from home, same against Liverpool, and I thought they were pretty limp when they conceded against Man City in the reverse fixture. They got an ideal start with Jamie Vardy scoring, and then once City scored, it felt almost inevitable at that point that Leicester were dropping points. And I just think even though City have been indifferent in some of the games this year, they certainly haven't played to the same form as last season. I think City go to Leicester and win.
Okay, on Sunday we've got Manchester United against Watford. Paddy Power odds. United odds on 15-8 on. The draw 3-1. Watford 9-2 in the drop zone. The Hornets. Wolves against Norwich. Wolves 9-4 on. 3-1. The draw Norwich 11-2. And Arsenal Everton. Just speaking about them there. Even money Arsenal 5-2. The draw Everton 13-5. Is Bruno Fernandes making much of a difference in Manchester United? Seems to be doing so well enough so far. Yeah,
this is the kind of game where they need Bruno Fernandes, where they have won away twice this season at Man City. They've won away twice this season at Chelsea. That's not a problem for United under Solskjaer, which just shows how hit and miss they are, that they can go to the likes of Stamford Bridge and the Etihad and win these games, and then they just look sterile against other teams. They've already lost to Watford, but Bruno Fernandes is in. This is you'd expect Watford to sit in and frustrate United. So this is where you need someone like Fernandes to try and pick holes and find gaps, and he obviously has that ability to shoot from long range, and it is a game that's troubled United. It's interesting to see how things have started to go on the decline for Watford after getting themselves out of the relegation zone.
The Villa game was a killer.
Yeah, absolutely. They need a second wind now, and this would be perfect for them to get it, but it's hard to see them winning. A draw would be a great result for Watford, and a draw would obviously not be a good result for United. This is also the knock-on effect of playing Europa League, where
Thursday, Sunday for the rest of the season.
Sunday,
Travel
yeah.
as well. I know they got the private jets, but still is travel. But we're talking about Chelsea and Spurs not being at their best at the moment. Is there a chance here for United to get into the top four? They're 7-2, 4-1 to do so. It's not a bad price.
Yeah, they're going to have to clean up results like this, because I remember we were looking where they were on a run to 2 wins in a row before the reverse fixture, and we thought the rule of 3 is going to kick in, and they lost at Vicarage Road. So they're the type of games where United struggle. Some of these kickoffs on an afternoon in Old Trafford as well, they've struggled a few times this season to create chances. We saw them against Wolves. They didn't look like they were going to score if the game went on for another hour a few weeks ago as well. Bruno Fernandes kind of has an unusual situation as well, John, where I think he'd prefer to play slightly further forward, but must at the moment without Pogba. So Fernandes having to drop back a little bit deeper to get the ball. You want him around the final third to be shooting, to be potentially creating assists. United still lack Marcus Rashford, I think, to break down teams who are going to try and sit deep as well, and that's exactly what Watford are going to do. I'd imagine the game plan is exactly what happened at Anfield in Pearson's first game in charge, where they'll look to break. They'll obviously try and get Deulofeu on the counter-attack, try and get the ball up towards Troy Deeney and get goals, but for the best part Watford are going to sit in to try and frustrate, and we have seen some of the lower down teams frustrate United at Old Trafford so far this season. So United should win, but if they're going to win, I wouldn't be all that confident given what they've done in these games this season.
We've been putting the mortgage on it. Don't put the mortgage on Man United on Sunday. Will O'Callaghan's advice here on the Paddy Power half hour. Arsenal and Everton. Arsenal 10th, Everton 9th. Mikel Arteta, though, I think seems to be making a very positive impact.
Yeah, and I think
that hair as well is legendary.
The break, I mean, I could only dream of a hair like that, but the break that they had gave him a chance to just do some more work on the training ground, because obviously when he came in, Arsenal's confidence was at a very...
the Chelsea game was good, though. They showed a bit of fight in that game.
Yeah, they were down to 10 men.
Yeah, and at Chelsea, and that really struck me early on that this guy is getting in there that dressing room.
They've only lost one game.
Yeah.
Since he came in, one game in the league. And you think of Everton are obviously on a decent run. Arsenal need to start turning games into wins, and obviously they had the win last week against Newcastle. They subsequently won last night as well. So they're
there's still 7 points between Arsenal and Chelsea.
And this is, if you look at Arsenal and Everton, so 7 points off. So next, obviously, for Arsenal, after Everton, they play West Ham, they've Brighton, Southampton, Norwich, Wolves and Leicester. Okay, so up until that Norwich game, they're all very winnable games for Arsenal. So they could get themselves back into the mix. But then, I mentioned they have to play Wolves away, they play Leicester, they play Spurs, they play Liverpool, so they could fall away again. But it's a good chance for them. As for Everton, their form has picked up. We're going to see what they're really made of, because after this Arsenal game, they play United, Chelsea, Liverpool, they've Norwich, then they play Leicester and Spurs. So we're going to see if things are really on the up under Ancelotti in the next few weeks. But it's a game I still think Arsenal are going to win.
Yeah, I think Arsenal should win. It's obviously something Arteta's trying to work out at the moment, is how to fit all of his attacking players into the same team at the same time. And he's making an admirable go at it at the moment. It maybe isn't all quite clicking. Discipline has been a problem throughout the season with some of the Arsenal players, and Guendouzi is now the latest, where Arteta's had to drop him because of his attitude in training. On the face of it, Guendouzi looks like the perfect player to kind of be the guy in midfield who can be a shield, but also at the same time carry the ball out of their midfield and try and create chances for those players up front. So there is a little bit of a disconnect between their defence and their attack at the moment. But Aubameyang seems happy to have accepted a role over more towards the left-hand side. Nicola Pepe has been coming into it a bit more in recent weeks, and he's been a bit more prominent after what was a shaky enough start to the club, really. And it seems that they're happy enough to deploy Lacazette up front in these games as well, which gives them a lot of firepower when you consider Mesut Ozil around as well. I think that's going to make the difference against Everton. But since these two managers were appointed at exactly the same time, and we're in the stands watching this reverse fixture, their form has been good. Everton and Arsenal both unbeaten in their last 5 in the league. Arsenal coming off the back of a decent result in the Europa League on Thursday night as well. These two teams are both upwardly mobile in the Premier League at the moment.
Auspicious is the word I think we might use about Arsenal and Everton ahead of next season, probably at this stage. The Championship, Leeds and West Brom still 1-2. West Brom top of the table away to Bristol City tomorrow. 6-5 on West Brom. Bristol City 3-1 the draw, 11-4, and Leeds 4-1 on to beat Reading at home at Ellen Road. 9-2 the draw, 10-1 Reading. Any team that is now in your head to break out of this quagmire that is the Championship? Yeah,
I know a few weeks ago I thought if Derby were probably the lowest team that could go on a run, and then they went and they picked up a win, then they lost and they've drawn. So I think I'm looking more at the likes of Swansea up. So Swansea are on 48 points. they're scoring goals now, but unfortunately they're not keeping clean sheets. Cardiff are the team to watch out for now. They're 9th. They're on 50 points and they're starting to work their way up. But then Brentford and Blackburn, you've got Preston obviously. Forest did well to get that draw last week with the late goal against West Brom, which came off the back of losing to Charlton. That was a massive win for Leeds against Bristol City last week, especially with Fulham losing to Barnsley, which was an absolutely nuts result. Like losing 3-0 to a team that are down at the bottom, and Fulham are in action tonight against Derby. So I still think when I watch Leeds, they're dominating games. I don't buy into they're tired. I think the Bielsa thing is just, it's plan A. If plan A isn't working, his instructions are just make plan A better. Yeah, so that's why they will just keep trying plugging away.
So they said in bullseye, Leeds are safe. They're safe. They're going to be promoted.
I wouldn't say that. No. Definitely not.
No, I think the tail off with Leeds often happens later in the season, and that's the worry if you were a Leeds fan, is that actually the drop off is happening a little bit earlier this season than compared to the last couple of years. I wouldn't fancy them to go up at this stage. I think they're going to end up in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to end up in the top two.
No, it's not going to happen for Leeds. We got the championship. We also have the League of Ireland as well tonight. Shamrock Rovers against Cork, Dundalk against Shells. It's time for your predictions, guys. Anything in the League of Ireland or the Championship or the Premier League that you're seeing that will give us a winner this week on the Paddy Power half hour?
I fancy Shells to get a point from Dundalk tonight.
Really?
Yeah, I genuinely do. I think Dundalk obviously started the season fairly okay last week, got their 1-0 win. It was binary code across the league last week. Every game was 1-0. But I think Shells might actually, night back at Talca Park after coming up from the first division last year, I really think they've recruited very well, and I think they might just be able to frustrate Dundalk and get a point tonight. Probably be horribly wrong, and Dundalk will end up winning 5-1. Shamrock Rovers, I think, definitely beat Cork tonight. Cork are a bit messy and everything is trying to gel in for them. Rovers obviously got a fantastic result against Bows last week, away from home in very testing conditions as well.
Yeah, I think obviously Dundalk and Rovers are the two teams that are going to be challenging for the league title, and Dundalk started slowly last season, but I think they'll beat Shelburne. Might be a high scoring one. And you'd
3-1 the draw, Will. 3-1 the draw.
You'd imagine
it's
Rovers,
not a bad outside bet.
Take away paid for.
Rovers should beat Cork as well. So
your bet this weekend?
I think if I was going to put a bet on this weekend, I'm looking at you're maybe Brighton might surprise a few.
Brighton.
And take something against Sheffield United.
Brighton against Sheffield United.
Like even if it's just a draw, but everyone would expect Sheffield United to win because they're flying high and Brighton are down near the bottom. And obviously some of the Brighton players have been getting up to a few naughty things off the pitch.
Who knows what was in the balloons, Phil?
Burlington Bertie 100-30. That's the final word from Phil Egan, and Shells to draw 3-1 tonight against Dundalk. Yeah, so that's been the Paddy Power half hour with John Duggan, Phil Egan and Will O'Callaghan. Thanks, lads. PSG, the bottlers, to win the Champions League. You can still get 9-1. Remember, our football coverage brought to you thanks to Paddy Power. For more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. This has been the Paddy Power half hour. We'll be back next Friday from noon. Talk to you then. Thanks.
The Paddy Power half hour on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.